Pay no attention to the third eye that I've got in the middle of my bloody head. Something bit me when I was outside. Don't know what it was, but it fucking got me good. But yeah, let's just get through this one. Edward Colston statue, four cleared of criminal damage. Four people accused of illegally removing a statue of Edward Colston have been cleared of criminal damage. Sage Willoughby, Rian Graham, Milo Ponsford, and Jake Scusi were charged after a monument to the 17th century slave trader was pulled down and thrown into Bristol's harbourside last June. You most likely have all seen the video of all of that happening. And it happened during a Black Lives Matter protest in the city. Loud cheers erupted in the public gallery of Bristol Crown Court as the verdicts were returned. The defendants, who are all from Bristol, apart from Mr. Ponsford, 26, who is based in Hampshire, laughed and hugged supporters who were waiting outside after they were released. I had a similar experience after my trial, except I was found guilty and I actually did a lot less than what these guys did. But yeah. Mr. Willoughby, 22, was seen taking the knee, a symbolic gesture of the BLM movement, outside court. Hope she sees this, bro. Three of the four defendants also wore T-shirts designed by Banksy, which featured a stencil of the toppled statue's plinth, and that is, oh well, we can get into Banksy in a minute. Speaking outside court after being acquitted, Miss Graham said, "We just want to say thank you to so many people because we have never been alone on this journey. We have been so supported and we are such a small part of this. There were so many people that day, so many people reverberating across the world in response to it." Mr. Willoughby denied they were trying to edit history, but said others were whitewashing history by calling Colston a virtuous man. "We didn't change history, we rectified it." That means changing it. Rectifying something means you changed it. This is a victory for Bristol. This is a victory for racial equality, and it's a victory for anybody who wants to be on the right side of history. Okay, now a few of the things that we can actually start covering in this. Now, regardless of what your feelings were on the actual statue itself, it was criminal damage. It was criminal damage. It was property that was not theirs and did not belong to them, and they destroyed it and threw it in the river. Therefore, it is, in fact, criminal damage according to the laws, and we are all equal under the law. Like, for example, someone in the street could be a complete fucking dickhead. He's going around, he's harassing people, he's making fun of people, he's being an arsehole. If I walk up and punch that guy in the face, even though the guy was an arsehole and even though the guy might have deserved it, still assault. It's still assault. But even if the guy, slavers, not exactly the biggest fan of slavers, don't like slavers, libertarians tend not to like people who owned other people, like, despite what the memes say. But to go up and destroy property that is not legally yours, that is destruction of property. So they did, in fact, commit a crime. However, their verdict was overturned, and I believe the reason for it is not because of any, following of the law itself. I think it's because they knew that there would be a massive public backlash. Or it could have been a case of jury nullification, because as far as I know, they had a jury, and the jury could have went, yeah, we agree that they committed a crime, however, we're going to find them not guilty for it because we believe they were justified in committing a crime. By that's something that juries can do. It's called jury nullification, and courts fucking hate it when that happens. They do not like jury nullification. The public gallery erupted into screams and cheers of joy as the four defendants, who've been named the Colston Four, were cleared of wrongdoing. Outside, supporters gathered with banners, and Rian Graham tearfully thanked them. The thanks also extended to street artist Banksy, whose t-shirt sales raised funds for them. Now, the one thing about Banksy is we've all known for a very long time that Banksy has been, in my opinion, was anti-authoritarian. He was anti-authoritarian. He would go up and he would spray paint. Yeah, okay, he would cause damage to private property, blah blah blah, and all this other type of stuff. Right, that is something that he would do, but it was always with a message against the government. It was against the government. It was against authoritarianism. It was against a nanny state. It was against the surveillance state. It was against all of that stuff, and that is one of the reasons that I really liked and really enjoyed Banksy. And I even actually have a tattoo of one of his words on my arm, the smiley face police officer, basically, because they're LARPing as being your friend. They're LARPing, oh, we are here for your best interest, citizen. We're here to protect you, even though the police are like the government protection unit. That's what they're there for. Banksy, however, seems to have in his being anti-authoritarian towards the government, he instead has embraced and adopted another form of authoritarianism, which is mob rule. I'm not in Banksy's head. I don't know how he's thinking about it, but I think he's thinking, oh, as long as it's the people doing it, then this type of authoritarianism is okay. But I mean, the government are people too. It's essentially the exact same thing. It's just one wears suits and the other has piercings and funny hair. You know, it's still authoritarianism, and it seems that Banksy has embraced it. Like, I understand that it's a long run. You're talking about the graffiti artists vandalizing public property. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm completely aware of that. It's just that I completely understand how Banksy would be okay with the statue getting brought down. After all, he himself damages basically public and private property in order to make a statement, so I understand why he's fine with that. It's just that the overall underlying meaning behind it is he seems to, instead of being an anti-authoritarian from the government, he is supportive of authoritarianism emerging from mob rule, because I think in his mind he's like, well, it's the people doing it, but I've already explained why that's nonsense. While there were many supporters outside the court delighted that the four were acquitted, others were not so impressed. One came up to supporters of the Colston Four and said that the result was disgusting. This is something that has divided opinion in Bristol and beyond, and the verdict will lead to more debate about which statues should remain standing across the UK. Because if there's one thing that has came from this trial, it's that criminal damage and destruction of property is now legal. Like, what other way are you supposed to look at it? If you find an establishment that has a history of doing very, very bad things, then you can go up and destroy it. So, for example, Volkswagen and BMW, they did some stuff during World War II. They were able to get some workers in Germany from certain places who worked without pay. Volkswagen and BMW, and as far as I know, they've paid no reparations, even though some of the people that were forced to work in the factories, many of them being Jewish children, they're still alive. They're still alive, and they haven't seen a penny from BMW or Volkswagen. Right? And I mean, according to this case, if someone has a very, very bad history of doing things such as owning slaves, which technically Volkswagen and BMW did in Nazi Germany, that means that you are allowed to go up and set fire to all of their showrooms and all of their factories. That's the message that this sends. That's the message that this sends. If anything has a shady history, Bank of England, all of these other places, I don't think the government realises what it's just done. The Karl Marx monument, the Friedrich Engels monument, you can now go up and absolutely destroy them because they created an ideology that killed millions of people. You can now go up and destroy all of these. Basically, if it's a case of if anything has a really, really shady, disgusting history of killing people or abusing people or, just doing very, very horrible things, you are now allowed to go up and destroy it. So, government buildings, because let's face it, the British government and the police have a very long history of doing a lot of awful atrocities. I'm just saying, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I encourage people strongly to not do that. Definitely don't do it. However, this is the message that the government sent. This wasn't me. As far as, libertarians were big on private property. You cannot just go up and destroy someone's private property, but the government has just sent the message that, yeah, that's okay, actually, if you have a good enough reason and the person that you're doing it to is bad enough and deserves it. That's the message that the government's just sent, and I think it's going to end up paying very hard for it. Raj Chadha, who represents Mr. Scusi, says the defendants should never have been prosecuted for criminal damage. He stated that it is shameful that Bristol City Council did not take down the statue of slaver Edward Colston that had caused such offence to people in Bristol, and equally shameful that they then supported the prosecution of these defendants. And the problem for that is it doesn't matter how good your reasons were, we are all equal under the law. Right? It doesn't matter if you had a good reason. I know there's something, I forget what it's called, it's some Latin phrase called habito est licitum, where that which is necessary is legal, and it all depends on the circumstances of the crime. So say, for example, I've got a friend who, he's allergic to nuts. He's just accidentally eaten something that's got peanuts in it. His throat's closing up and he needs an EpiPen. Doesn't have his EpiPen on him. I then notice a shop, and I see in the shop the first aid box that's got the yellow band on it, which means it's got an EpiPen inside it. And then I boot, the shop's closed though, so I boot the door of the shop in, I come in, steal the EpiPen, and stab it in his leg. Saved his life. However, I did break and enter and steal from the shop. However, if I had not done so, a human life would have been lost. So what would happen is the courts would review that and say, okay, exceptional circumstances, you did commit a crime, but it was to save a human life. So that's why it's, yeah, you wouldn't get charged for that. And I think it's Harbito S. Lakitum. Like, I forget, I've probably said that completely wrong. So under those circumstances, that would be fine. However, in this circumstance, no one was in danger, no lives were in danger. People were just pissed off about the history of a statue. So that does not fall into this category. In this case, they determined that a conviction for the removal of this statue that glorified a slave trader would involve the enslavement of 84,000 black men, women and children, as a most virtuous and wise man would not be proportionate. Now, one thing I'll say is, right, is if people in an area, because I think whatever statues or whatever shit is displayed somewhere should come down to the people that live in that area. They should be the ones to decide what statues and whatever goes up. So I think, see, the people that lived in the immediate area of the statue, they should have been the ones that got to decide whether or not the statue stayed up. However, a bunch of students from all over the bloody country came in and made that decision for them. Now, would I hang up a statue of a slave trader? No, I wouldn't, because fuck slave traders, right? That part we all agree on, right? Fuck slave traders. But it is a case of if the people in the area want it, well, that's up to them. That's up to them. If that's what they want, then whatever. They live in the area, it's their property, they can have that. During a highly publicised trial, the court heard the statue was ripped down before being thrown into the harbour during a wave of protest triggered by the murder of African-American George Floyd by a white police officer. The 4 defendants, together with others unknown, were accused of damaging the Colston statue and plinth of a value unknown without lawful excuse. During the trial, Mr. Scusi, 33, says that he took part in rolling the statue to the docks to stage a symbolic sentencing of the slave trader. Mr. Willoughby argued that the statue was an insult. Appearing in the dock, he says, imagine having a Hitler statue in front of a Holocaust survivor. I believe they are similar. One is a hell of a lot more extreme, but okay, I get the point that you're making. Having a statue of someone of that caliber in the middle of a city, I believe, is an insult, and I will continue to believe that whatever the outcome of this. Okay, so basically in this case, they did it all wrong. If people in the area said, we want the statue taken down, and then they had a vote, and the vote won, then whatever, that's fine. Take the statue down, remove it, put it in a museum or whatever, because again, don't rectify history, as you were saying. You know, you don't have to glorify all of history, but it is still important to remember and study history. So if the statue was removed and put in a museum, not an issue. That's absolutely 100% fine. But just going in and destroying it without actually having a discussion with everyone who lives in the area about it, then no, that's bad. And as for Banksy, yeah, I completely understand why he supported this, because I mean that's his entire job, is destruction of private property. However, I still enjoy Banksy's art, and I still enjoy it. Enjoyed. I did enjoy all of his old previous messages about beware of the government, beware of the surveillance state, beware of authoritarians, and that's absolutely fine. However, the camp that he has now fell in with, well, they are just as authoritarian as the government. They just don't have all the tools yet to implement it. Because see how all the people at the Black Lives Matter protest that did this to the statue, if you stuck all of them in government, what do you think would happen? I think you know what would happen. But it would happen to people like me, and you would be okay with that.